All right. Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Amina Doherty, and I am currently the Interim Director of Tactics at AWID, but I also manage the arts and creative expression work. What else can I say about myself? I am Nigerian, but based and living in the Caribbean. I'm really excited to have all of you guys join us for our first live, both Vienna and I, both our first live. And so we will jump right in. Since 2012, we at AWID have been putting together an annual tribute that honors feminists, women's rights, social justice activists from around the world who unfortunately are no longer with us. We have used photography and poetry and visual art and dance. And our work with artists has become even more pronounced in the past year as part of our new strategic plan. And if you haven't checked out AWID's new strategic plan, please do. I think the link for it will be in the comments. And it talks a lot about how we intend to work more closely with artists and engage artist communities in our work. For the most part, because we recognize that art and creative expression, it really is an intrinsic part of our movements and our struggles, and that we also have a lot to learn from artists and artist communities. So this year, I've been really honored and really excited to be working with Vienna Rye, an incredible artist who's based out of New York City. So Vienna, I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Amina. So I guess I just want to start by acknowledging that I am in New York City, but this is actually occupied Lenape territory. So I just want to, thank them for having us on their land. And so I am an activist and an artist, primarily a visual artist. I've been doing activism for several years, primarily around jail, prison, and police abolition work. I got heavily involved in the New York City movement following the death of Eric Garner at the hands of the NYPD, as well as the death of Mike Brown. And since then, I've been organizing marches, political education classes, all kinds of an occupation of City Hall as well. So quite a wide range of activist activity. And my primary tool in activism, I would say, is my visual art. And it's how I can really leverage my skill set to advance the struggle. So that's kind of like a brief background.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you do. And folks, if you want to also learn a bit more about Vienna, we do have a feature about her on our website, www.awid.org. So please do check it out to learn more about Vienna and her work. So Vienna, launching right into our lunchtime chat, our lunchtime live, first time. Can you tell us a little bit about what moved you to be part of this project?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, these are the stories that need to be told, and these are the stories that need to be heard. We live in a white supremacist patriarchal society, and we hear the same stories over and over from, our education system to the media to just, history itself is really written by white men in power. So, for me, it was really important to have this opportunity and really this honor to tell these stories that we are, we so rarely hear. And especially, working on the front lines and working in the trenches, you see who's really doing the most creative work, the most incredible work are, they're trans women, they're undocumented women, they are disabled women, they are women of color. And that's, the reality of who's really carrying the revolutionary struggle. And so this is something that is consistently not told to us. And it really kind of narrows the perception of what we consider possible.
Thank you. And I know that I reached out to you very early on this year to invite you to be part of this project with us. What would you say is one of your biggest learnings about this project and about what you've learned about women human rights defenders through this project?
I think the biggest takeaway is really just like how vast the amount of work being done by women is. And, it just, again, made it so clear to me how narrow our perception of history is, right? And there's just so much incredible work from, women doing work around caste-based discrimination, to legalizing sex work, to indigenous farmers fighting for land rights, to sexual and reproductive rights. I mean, there were so many different avenues of struggle that women were taking up space and doing incredible work. And, that was really inspiring for me to really delve into.
Awesome. Thank you. So I feel like I have a whole lot of list of questions, and I know some of these came from folks that work at AWID as well. So it's nice to have questions from the team. Why do you think that it's important to pay tribute to the folks who we've been paying tribute to through the WHID tribute? Why do you think it's important for us to honor, remember, and pay tribute?
I mean, I really see it as a rewriting of history in a sense, or writing our own history. And it's so important, again, to tell these stories and to document these lives and document the courage that these women carried and struggled with. Because again, we're just never told the real, or we're never given the real education of who paved the way for us to do the work that we do. And for me, it's a way of really decolonizing our imagination, decolonizing what is possible. I remember the first time I really studied revolutionary women, and it opened up a whole new world of possibilities in terms of like what I could be, what I could contribute, what my place in the world could be. And I see as, our work here that we're doing with this collection is really just another small step of, trying to paint a larger picture of what is possible and what has been done by women. And so, yeah, that's kind of my takeaway on it. But, it's been such an honor really to learn all the stories of these women.
So one of the things that we're going to put on the screen right now is one of the pieces that you've worked on for us. So everyone gets a sneak peek of the work before the full series launches on Thursday. Could you speak a little bit to the symbolism and the elements that you've used in the various pieces of art? And I know we have one on the screen right now, but it would be great if you could talk about this piece in particular and also just in general, the full series.
Yeah, typically with art, there's a lot of elitism. Art like traditionally is in galleries, and especially like modern art, you can stare at a painting forever and have no idea what it means. So for me, and this is something we had discussed early on in the process, but the idea of visual literacy and really creating art that can speak to a large variety of people and people who don't necessarily have a background in art. I don't actually have any official art education. I'm a self-taught artist. So art that's accessible to the people is really important to me. So I try to use elements that are can be interpreted in many different cultures, many different languages. I use the natural elements quite often. So you can see in this particular one, there's an image of the moon. And I tend to combine the moon and the sun. So there's like sun rays coming out of the moon. I use a lot of floral, a lot of different types of flowers. I try to use specifically flowers from the region that the woman worked in and lived in. So in this particular one, I can see there's also like an image in the background from the apartheid struggle in South Africa. It was an actual archival image. So I really try to combine these elements in a way that it's accessible to a lot of different types of people, and allows people to really form their own interpretations of the work, because something like a moon, it can mean so many different things to different people, and all of them are important. All these interpretations are equally valid. So I kind of like leaving that with the viewer and seeing what resonates.
Did you learn about different interpretations of the different elements through this process? I know that we had a back and forth sometime on some of the pieces, and we were talking about, what this means in a particular context or a particular place, how different people kind of see the moon. What did you learn about some of the different elements that you're accustomed to using that you sort of didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got a wide range of feedback that some I had never heard before. I typically use a lot of like golden circles and all kinds of like metallic arcs and stuff. And there was some interesting feedback there about like, just religious iconography and just imagery that I hadn't connected the two dots. So, so clearly, a lot of these symbols can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is that, one symbol can really tell a huge variety of stories. And so within a single image or a single art piece, you could have, an infinite number of interpretations. But again, for me, there's also a strong connection with just kind of the source and the universe, and trying to keep those elements alive. So, yeah.
So if you could give some advice or some just sort of, I guess, some some inspiration out there to young artists who are doing this kind of work, what kind of message would you like to send out to them?
I definitely think the most important is to really immerse yourself where you live. Knowing your neighbors, knowing your community, knowing the history of where you live, knowing whose land you're on, and really holding space for that. Both, the people who currently are on the land and also the ancestors, who came before. So I think for me, for artists, it's really important to be in tune to your environment and, being in tune with the people doing the work on the front lines where you live. I think that's honestly the most important thing. And for me, art is really almost a form of intuition. Art is kind of like this movement towards truth. And you can really only find the truth if you're living in the veins of your community.
Beautiful, thank you. So one of my last questions, I guess, is to hear from you a little bit about what inspires your creative process. And I know you've talked a little bit about immersing yourself in your community and your environment, but what kind of place do you need to get into to be able to produce work like this? And whether that's your mental space or your physical environment, like what needs to happen to be able to do this kind of work?
Well, when I actually work, like when I'm actually sitting in front of like a blank canvas, I actually kind of go into like a zone state where I kind of zone into the work. It's almost like just working with spirits in a way. And I kind of see it as almost like sculpting. When I create like a visual piece, you kind of find the art in the canvas. So I typically don't really know where I'm going to start or, where I'm going to end with the piece. I kind of find it through the process, and I work typically with like digital visual media. And so there's like endless layers. So I work, there might be like 50, 60 layers in a piece, and I kind of keep track of everything as I'm moving backwards and forwards through a piece. And in that process, I really find the art. And I do find though that, there's almost like a research period that happens before it, which is the work of immersing yourself in the community, really doing, the difficult work and listening to people around you. And then when I actually enter the work itself, I kind of zone into, and it almost becomes like a muscle memory. So it's almost like two different states of being, both of which are necessary and they kind of feed off each other. But when I'm actually creating, it's almost like a meditation or something like of that.
I love that. I love that. And I guess another question that I have is, what would be your dream for this kind of project to ensure that these stories live on? And this is a little off script kind of question, but just, if we could ensure that this project lived on in many different ways, what are some of the ways that you would like to see this work live on and these stories?
I mean, I would love to see this work translate to on the ground, the backbreaking organizing work that there's really no substitute for. And I see a lot of my work that's online and it's digital, and it's, for me, the online world is almost just like another terrain that we need to navigate to reach people. But the ultimate goal is that people, then, attain the political education and, the new possibilities of imagination, and then translate that into the actual organizing work that we need on the front lines, in the trenches. And, and especially right now, like we're seeing, I'm sure you're following also, but like we're seeing what's happening at our border right now with the US government is tear gassing Central American asylum seekers. And, there's such a necessity for bodies on the ground, actually doing the difficult work, the draining work. So really, I would love to see this art translate into real action. That's
So my very last question for you is, if you could give a message or a statement, a message, a story, if you could say something to the many women that we're honoring this year as part of the WHRD tribute, what would you say? What would you say to the many folks who have submitted stories, the many folks who have submitted images? I know it was really difficult for us to even source images of some of the folks who we're honoring. So what would you say to all of the people who have been involved in this project, and in particular to the WHRDs who we've decided to honor this year?
I think I think I would really start by saying thank you. You know, thank you for your struggle, for your sacrifice, for your, you know, difficult, very difficult work. And know that all the struggle that, you know, you went through is being continued, and that we're fighting on the front lines. I mean, I won't even say a new generation. I mean, there's so many different ages of people on the front lines. But just know that people are carrying it forward, and that the work that paved, you know, the way here is really paving the way to the future. So yeah, so thank you for the sacrifice.
Thank you. Thank you. And so just before we wrap up, I guess a lot of people want to know more about you and about your work and where they can find you and find your work. Do you want to share a little bit about where folks can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. That's kind of my main platform. My Instagram handle is at Vrye, Vrye. That's really my main my main platform.
That's where we found you.
Right. I also have a website, v-rye.com. And I would say that's probably the two best ways to reach me. And you can always send me a DM. My email's on my profile bio. Shoot me a message. I definitely respond. So yeah, you can definitely hit me up.
Thank you, Vienna. And so to all the folks who tuned in for this really sort of condensed, small lunchtime live with myself and Vienna, thank you for coming. Thank you for making time for us. Thank you for just being part of the work. We're really excited to be sharing the work that Vienna has been working on for us. So that launches on Thursday. Make sure you check out the AWID website, which is www.awid.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, AWID at AWID Women's Rights. So thank you, everyone, for being part of this conversation. If you want to know a little bit more about how AWID is working more closely with artists, artivists, and creative communities, definitely do check us out. And we hope to share more of the work in this way as much as possible. So thank you to everyone, and thank you to the tech team for making this Facebook Live work. And yeah, have a good afternoon, everybody. Take care.
So thank you so much.
Thanks, Vienna.
Bye.